Today, folks, I found this opening that can win you above 60% of the time and can mate your opponents in 11 moves. Almost every line led into every trap, even the most popular line on this gambit. So, folks, this gambit is called the Danish Gambit, and it starts with e4. One of the most aggressive lines are on e4. So let's go e4 and then e5, and then we go and enter into gambit territory. We gambit one pawn in this opening. If our opponent takes our pawn, it will have a very great advantage that us will win, because we can do something great like developing, because he took our pawn and he wasted the move for taking a pawn. But folks, we're gonna take it into another level for this gambit, and now we're gonna go pawn to c3. What is this gambit called? It's now the Danish Gambit, because after taking the pawn on c3, which they might need to do, we will go bishop to c4, which attacks this pawn. And the pawn captures might not stop, and it will not stop, because he takes another pawn, he will have +3 points or +2 points after this trade, which in this position we will actually win with white. We're gonna go into the lines first and all the traps. A lot of our opponents here might go bishop to e7, which maybe is a blunder, because after bishop to g7 trapping the rook, you will constantly win the game, because you're literally trapping the rook. There is nothing they can do to stop this capture of a rook, and when we do capture it, we will just win the game, because of the fact we have more material than our opponent, plus 3.3 points according to the computer. We're gonna go to another line which is more smart for our opponent to do, which is knight to f6, which a lot of people will do, and this is the most popular line in this opening. And so what if they go knight to f6? We will go and push the pawn on e5, and so we will attack the knight. There is a multiple ways that the knight can go to, and so they might just go e4, which is the most popular move first. And so if they go knight to e4, there's something wrong with that. Why? Because bishop to f7 is a sacrifice to the king over here. If the king takes the bishop on f7, folks, it is a 4 to the king, plus this is attacked. And now they have to go back and be safe with the king, or else it will be exposed in the battlegrounds. And so I'm telling you guys, you will win, because after taking back the material you gambited, you will have a king exposed. The king cannot castle. Also, poor development, us having +1 piece in the game, plus this pawn taking some more space, we will win the game. Plus, it is much harder for black to play this, because now this king is exposed and we can take advantage of that. What if the other line happens? Bishop to b4 happens, checking the king on e1. And so this is the main line of, and so I will teach you this. What will you do is go knight to d2, cover up the check from the king on e1. We will go knight to d2, try to cover up from the check, and so what will the opponent do? Well, folks, a lot of people go knight to f6 because of this attack right here on f4, which attacks our knight on d2. And we will just go and force that before us. And so we're gonna go pawn to e5, attacking the knight, forcefully going it there. And so if they go there, they think they have pressured the knight enough that we have been confused. But little did they know, it is another trap. Because after another bishop sacrifice on f7, yet again, you might take the bishop. Yes, but again, you still have the same situation of being forked. And now you have learned how to fork 2 pieces in 2 lines already. And now they have to go here, here, here. And so a lot of people just go here. And they think that they can just cover it with a pawn. But there's something wrong with that. Because after en passant on d6, which a lot of people will think en passant is not real, because a lot of people are not trained to see en passant. After en passant, that is also checked to the queen, and so they might go and cover it up with a bishop. And folks, that is not a good move, because of the fact that we're just gonna take the bishop. But then folks, they might trade up the knight, because of course it's being attacked by the queen. And so if they trade the knight on d2, do we take the knight on d2? Yeah, no, we're not gonna take the knight on d2, because we're gonna check him first, and that is still a fork. By the way, if the king moves to g8 thinking that they're safe, they're wrong. Because of the fact that we can just stick the pawn on c7. And so, that is a fork to the queen and a knight. A ridiculous fork to fork their opponent. And if they go queen to e8, well then folks, we will go queen to e5, attacking the bishop, while also attacking this over here. There's so many threats that we fork the bishop, attacking the knight. What will the opponent do right now if he's very confused about the threats? This is still attack though. So folks, they might go queen to f7, finally protecting their bishop, finally protecting this. There's another disadvantage about that, because after we take the pawn on b8, after defending the queen over here, being distracted by this queen attacking the bishop and also the mate, well then folks, things can get worse, because after queen to b8, and so if they take the queen with the rook on b8, we will just take it with the queen on b8. And so that was a queen before on e5, now we're taking the rook on b8, and so that is a check to the king on g8. And so a lot of opponents in this position might go queen to f8, trying to cover up from the check over here, trying to trade. And now folks, we have two choices. We can take the queen on f8, and then they take, and we will take the knight freely, and we have won the game. We have traded the queens, which lessens the possibilities of checkmate early on in the board, plus having us plus 8 plus points in material. According to the computer, we got plus 6 points also. And so folks, that can happen, right? But we have a second choice, which is queen to e5, trying to go for this still, and also this being attacked and this being attacked. And so the opponent will just go again queen to f7, trying to protect the bishop and the mate yet again. We're gonna go knight to f3, trying to protect that queen on e5 and also developing the knight. But trying to force the knight on d2 to trade our knight on f3. If the knight on d2 takes the knight on f3, which might happen, which is a check, well then folks, we have this part. And so we are forcefully to take the knight on f3. And so if they take the knight on f3, and so we're gonna go rook to g1, trying to attack the pawn on g7, trying to forcefully make the checkmate happen. And so rook to h7, trying to protect the pawn will happen on g7. And so we will just castle our king on c1 plus the rook on b1, and so we're gonna have this very good attack on the king on this rank, on rank 8. And so that is very useful. We have so many pieces in attack, not to mention plus 5 points of material and also plus 9 points according to the computer. And now we're winning here. We got so much pressure opponent that it might lead to confusion that they will lose very early on in the board. And that is what makes this position advantageous on this opening. And so folks, we're just gonna go to the other lines. What if not knight to f6 happens, and what if not bishop to b4 happens, but instead pawn to d6? Which a lot of people might do, which is a normal move, trying to open up the bishop here, but at the same time blocking the bishop here. I don't like this move, but if they do that, just in case, we're gonna go knight to f3, trying to develop the knight, having this very, very Italian game position for us. And so, after that, in this position, a lot of opponents might go bishop to e6, and that makes them develop their own bishop. And we're just actually gonna trade the bishop on e6. What happens after that is that they might take it with the pawn, and so they have created a lot of weakness in the board. And so we're gonna go queen to b3, and so that is attacking the pawn on e6, which is a weakness, and also the pawn on b7, which is another weakness, which might also trap the rook. And so they might try to go queen to c8, trying to defend both pawns. So after doing all that, trying to defend, having a wise mind, we are gonna go knight to g5, trying to attack the pawn here on e6, and trying to go here and occupy the squares on the black territory. And so folks, they might do nothing here. Pawn to e5 is not an option here, because after queen to f7, that is very dangerous for them, because after this, they cannot castle anywhere because they have moved their king, and also their king is very exposed, and plus the queen is already here trying to attack the king, and a lot of mates will happen here in these games. This doesn't happen, and so they are trying to play smart here. So folks, what if king to e7 happens? Not a good move, because after knight to e6 in fashion, they might take with the queen on e6 and might think that we will just trade the queens, but no, because they left the defender of this pawn, which is the queen, and the queen moved to e6, which left the pawn's defender on b7. And so we will just take the pawn on b7, and now we're trapping the rook on a8. They might do something like this, but they cannot do anything to protect the rook, because after this, we will just take the rook back. And so we're gonna win in material over here. And now we have a very good queen in the center of the board, and plus an exposed king that has moved and cannot castle. And also, literally this, it's undeveloped. And now we're gonna castle, and they cannot castle. So folks, this line is very good. What if d6 does not occur, but instead, queen to g5, which is a different line. And so that is attacking the pawn and attacking our territory over here in the space in the center of the board. We're gonna go knight to f3, the same thing with the d5 line, and so we're attacking the queen. If they go here and take the pawn, there's nothing to worry about losing 3 plus pawns, and so we're just gonna go rook to g1, attacking the queen, winning some tempo. If they go here, queen to h3, we are gonna go and sacrifice the bishop to f7, and so they might go and take the bishop on f7. We're gonna go knight to g5 and actually fork them on the queen, so that is not an option for them. So what if they just go? We're just winning the game yet again by plus 3 points according to the computer. But if they do take the bishop though, this is a huge trap, and a lot of times they might take it actually. Oh, folks, there's the last line. Attacking our bishop, attacking this pawn, challenging this pawn on e4. But then folks, we will take up with the bishop on d5, and so if that happens, if they go pawn to c6, which attacks our bishop, which is annoying for them, we will go and take the pawn on f7. If they go and take the bishop on f7, well folks, we will take the free queen on d8. And so if they go king to e7, well then folks, there is this other trap, bishop to a3, still having the same thing. And if they take our bishop, you know the drill, you're just gonna take the queen back on d8. But if the other line happens, f6, attacking our both bishop and the pawn, which is the correct move, we're gonna go knight to c3, trying to protect those both. And if they take our bishop, well then folks, we will take back their knight, and still we have this very powerful knight on the board. And so if they go and attack our knight, we will go and sacrifice our knight on f6. And if they do take our knight, we're just gonna take the queen on d8. And if they take our queen, well then folks, we're gonna go and fork the king and the rook, and we're just gonna win material. And there's nothing they can do to stop and protect the rook and have it right. And so we're gonna take the rook. And so folks, I think those are all the lines. See you in the next video. So folks, this opening is very brutal. I recommend you to try it because a lot of players might fall for it. And these traps are so aggressive that might be so confused in the game that you will be checkmated in a few couple of moves. And so folks, see you guys in the next video. Peace out. Yeah, peace out.